Hi everyone, it's me, Jen, and I'm nothing if not intense. It is Wednesday, September 5th, and we are going to look at some new information that I found regarding Stephen Paddock and Mary Lou Danley. Now, I've been struggling with how to present this and how to make it make sense or get in everything in that I want to get in. So, here goes. What you're looking at right now is responsive documents from a FOIA request from Curtis Waltman of Muckrock News. Now, this guy FOIAs the shit out of stuff. He does this all the time. FOIA. So basically what this Office of Emergency Services is in California, I believe, is basically like a fusion center, a counterterrorism type fusion center. So this is just saying that they received his request. It took a while because he requested this stuff October 18th, 2017, and the response was March 1st, 2018. However, their response was huge. Their responsive documents totaled 1,825. So it says 826, but it's counting this letter. Unfortunately, this doesn't actually show you the FOIA request, but I do have a couple of examples because that same day, on October 18th, he sent the same FOIA request to numerous fusion centers. A couple of them I found very interesting. So let's look at what the actual request was. The actual request, and this was he sent to the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center, SNTC, whom we know a little bit about. So this is their response stating that they received his request. So here was his request. He was requesting from January 1st, 2017 to the date the request was processed, threat assessments, field reports, intelligence updates focused on the following: Antifa, Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, Proud Boys, KKK, Vanguard America. So all the alt-right, alt-left, the two sides that were clashing, basically. So that was the request in that for that first responsive document that I showed you that came out of California. And honestly, you guys, I had some downtime at work last week, and I don't even know exactly what I searched to find this. But I was kind of flabbergasted when I found it. So, and then what a chore going through the over 1,800 pages of documents, because I think a lot of it is super redundant, but I think for every time that certain piece of information gets disseminated throughout that particular office, if it gets disseminated 5 times, in a FOIA request, they have to release it 5 times, is the only thing I can think of. I didn't want to spend too much time going into, why is there 50 copies of this or 50 copies of that? So that is just the logical thing, I think, for as many people that it got disseminated to. In a FOIA request, they, by law, have to release it that many times within that request. So, let's get to the good stuff. Oh, but first, let me share with you what the LVMPD, because he sent the same request to them and to the Fusion Center. And it is 2 responses, 2 rejections, the exact same wording. It's on the same letterhead, so it's basically like the LVMPD's Public Information Office does everything for the Fusion Center also. So, let's see what they say. It's in response to your request for all that information. The records you are requesting are privileged and confidential, and and your request, the records, is denied based on the following laws and privileges, and it cites blah, 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 blah. However, you're also requesting records relating an email search with the following keywords. An email search for the above 15 words can be conducted at the rate of $40 per hour. These emails will be reviewed and redacted in accordance with the above objections. Please advise if you would desire an email search to be conducted at this time, and we will forward you an estimate of the cost to be paid prior to the commencement of the searches. Sincerely, Joseph Lombardo, Sheriff. So, at any rate, not one piece of information from LVMPD, the Fusion Center, and the FBI. He sent the same request to the FBI, got the same basic rejection. The only place I could find in the whole of Nevada that gave him any responsive documents was actually the Nevada Threat Assessment Center, which is the state Threat Assessment Center. And we'll get into that a little bit further. This has kind of become, it just became a kind of a complicated mess of documents to follow, but worth looking at. So now we're going to get to the good stuff. I promise. So as I'm wading through all this, I run across this. It's Monday, October 2nd, 2017, RE Notes from DHS FBI Critical Incident Conference Call. FYSA, for your situational awareness, from the Fusion Center right there by the Strip, SNCTC, and we all know that Antifa of Melbourne made a claim regarding the attack. However, SNCT does not assess the claim to be credible, as the page is believed to be affiliated with white supremacist groups attempting to discredit Antifa. The post regarding the claim has since been deleted. Thanks, Jared. Best, Jared. Okay, so that was the last email, actually. However, Jared must have forwarded his notes from the national conference call to this Gary Hirsch and a few other people. So I think Gary's his supervisor, and he's like, just FYI for future reference, after making notes, even if it's quick and dirty, spend a few minutes after the call to clean up for ease of reading, add some bullet points, condense, make the flow of reading easy to follow. These are going to straight to the director, so keep your audience in mind. I should just glance it over, be able to sign off before sending it up. So, now here is Jared's notes from the 1300, and I'm assuming that means 1 p.m. on October 2nd, DHS FBI Critical Incident National Conference Call regarding the Las Vegas shooting, October 1st. Statements from the FBI/LVMPD. The attack began at 22:08 p.m. from the 32nd floor of Mandalay Bay. At least one law enforcement officer was killed. At 2300, 11 p.m., did Jared just make, a typo? Was this a typo? Or did they actually say it was 11 o'clock when the shooter, Stephen Craig Paddock, a resident of Mesquite, killed himself when SWAT members entered his room? Now, in the beginning, it was really tied closely together once they decided their narrative was going to be that he self-terminated, as FEMA would put it. It was always in close proximity to them breaching that room. Because if you remember correctly, Sheriff Joe said in more than one press conference, well, we'll have to go back and check the body-worn camera to see if it, the smoke, we didn't know it was when we engaged him, or it was when we engaged him, he killed himself, blah, blah, blah. So in the beginning, they tied those two happenings very close together. Remember when they called out the fit detective when he was going to get the warrant for the room, I believe? He actually said officers watched Paddock kill himself. So that in and of itself, just like with Jesus, there has been many different versions of what happened to that person in 135. He killed himself. They watched him kill himself. He killed himself right as they were reaching the door. Then it was like, we don't know when he killed himself. Then now FEMA, in the FEMA report, it pins it down between 10:16 and 10:18, I believe, because of the heat indicator thingy in the room, which, again, I still don't understand that, but hey. So, but then after they decided they wanted to distance themselves between the fact that they breached the door and, you know, he was already dead, or we don't know when he killed himself. So I found that interesting. At that time, now remember, this is the day after, so they're still going with the fact that he checked in on September 28th when they knew damn well he checked in on September 25th. We know that from law enforcement, from the releases, from some of the dispatch calls, dispatch logs, officer statements. We know that they knew who was registered to that room and when they checked in. Paddock was not previously known to FBI. His latest offense was a traffic citation in 2009. Travel records show that Paddock recently traveled to Barcelona, Spain, and had returned from Dubai in 2016. I'm not sure. We know that there were pictures of Mary Lou Danley in Dubai that I think I didn't necessarily know that he was with her then. If that's the same trip, I would kind of assume so. And him recently traveling to Barcelona, Spain. If you remember, in late August, there was a lot of Islamic, there were some Islamic terrorist attacks in Barcelona. And then Cambrils, I believe. So, I don't know if there's a connection there or not. Paddock's living girlfriend is a citizen of Australia and the Philippines. Both Paddock and the girlfriend have no clear ties to extremist activity. Now, the next bullet point is what about made me fall off my chair. And I hope I can highlight here. Please work. Paddock was the subject of 200 financial suspicious activity reports, with all revolved around casino activity. His girlfriend was subject of 18 financial suspicious activity reports. I'm assuming maybe revolving around casino activity too. They don't really break that down, but to my knowledge, no one has ever put that information out. We were not privy to that information. I think it's huge. What the hell was he doing? Money laundering? Terrorist finance? I don't know. And remember, in one of the officer's statements, it does talk about one of his bank accounts being shut down because of suspicion of terrorist activity or financing terrorism. Now, in the final report, good old Sheriff Joe, they blow that out. No, that never happened. He never had a bank account shut down, due to suspicion of terrorism. Well, with this information, I would tend to believe that maybe that did happen. So, again, I was like, what the hell? I think that is very, very significant. 200 suspicious activity reports for Paddock and 18 for Mary Lou? What the hell? Now, the next one, we knew this. It wasn't really stated like this, but Paddock wired over $100,000 to the Philippines in September. It is not known who received the money. Now, if we're to believe the LVMPD, it was Mary Lou, and he was going to break up with her, and that was money for her to buy a house in the Philippines. Bullshit. I've been saying that from day one. That is absolute bullshit. The whole Mary Lou story is bullshit. So, over 100,000. Now, they say 150,000. It could have been 150,000. They tell us that he went to Western Union and did, I believe, two $50,000 transactions to the Philippines within their timeline that they were following, or that they were releasing within the investigation. So there's $50,000 that was wired, apparently, or more than $100,000. So at some other point prior to that first time that they mention it in the final, well, they mentioned it in the fit and the final. I guess I could look it up real quick. I didn't do that. But I know it was like 27th, 28th of September, somewhere in there. Now, the next bullet point is completely blacked out. I have no clue what that little gem is. Hard telling. But whatever it is, they don't want us to know. Now, remember, this is coming from the California Office of Emergency Services, from a FOIA request regarding alt-right and alt-left field assessments, threat assessments, emails, things like that. And more than likely, it was because of that false Antifa claim that this stuff got released. And I'm having a hard time in this new report finding the timeline. If I look at my old FIT report, I could go right to it. Oh, shoot, you guys, I'm sorry. All right, hold on. Okay, so on September 26th, according to the timeline in the final report, at 3:35 p.m., when Paddock was in Mesquite, he completed a wire transfer of $50,000 from his Wells Fargo account to an account in the Philippines. Footnote, information obtained through federal grand jury subpoena. Then, again, on September 28th, while he was in Mesquite, at 2:44 p.m. to 3:01 p.m., he made a deposit of $14,000 at a Wells Fargo and transferred $50,000 to a bank in the Philippines. So there's $100,000. Now, if we look at page, what did I do? Oh my gosh. In the financial analysis, which was completed by the FBI, footnote, page 111 of the final report, within his financial analysis, where it's all the BS about how badly his finances had decreased and stuff, but they said in 2017, and most of the decline occurring in 2017, $600,000 was paid to casinos. Approximately $130,000 was associated with Danley. $130,000. That's on page 111. But now, if you go to page 114 of the final report, which is, it's Mary Lou Danley's not interview, but synopsis and summaries of the interviews conducted by investigators in various agencies. There should be a footnote on here. It was FBI, basically. But the summary of her interviews, where it does talk about, on page 114, how in late August, early September, Paddock told Danley she should go see her family in the Philippines. BS. Supposedly she departed September 15th. Now, the timeline starts September 17th, so maybe that other transfer was it was either on the 15th or the 16th, because the timeline starts on the 17th. But the total, he made 3 separate wire transfers into Danley's account during the trip. The total of the transfers was $150,000. According to Danley, the money was to be used to purchase a home in the Philippines. That would be probably a freaking mansion, $150,000. Danley was concerned Paddock may be attempting to set her up with a home and break up with her. I call a bullshit. The price is wrong, Bob. Didn't happen. Okay? So, again, 3 separate transfers. We know about 2 of them. It never says Danley's account. It says an account in the Philippines. In the notes from the critical incident call, it says it is not known who received the money, but the total of, it says the total of transfers was $150,000. But now, within the financial analysis, they're only relating $130,000 to Mary Lou Danley. So, there again, more inconsistencies and more lies. I find it amazing how these people just think that we're not gonna figure this shit out. Come on, they need to at least be consistent in their lies. They can't even get that right. Okay, so then, like I said, the next bullet point, completely blacked out. We'll never know what that says. Then it talks about 22 weapons and tannerite, an explosive substance, were located in the room and also in his vehicle and residence. I do not believe that tannerite was located in the room. I do not believe that tannerite was located in his van. I do maybe believe that some was found at his residence. And I will do the video on, I've got serious issues with vehicles. And so I will do a video on that in the near future. Next bullet point, investigators are looking into electronic media that was recovered from the residence. Next bullet point, completely blacked out. We'll never know. Bullet point, ISIS has claimed responsibility in 4 separate communications and 1 post from Antifa. Group claimed that Paddock was associated with an Australian group. However, there are no known ties to an overseas or domestic extremist organization. Law enforcement is conducting searches of known properties to include those in Reno, Nevada. Okay, so that was bullet points from what the FBI and LVMPD said. Basically, probably the FBI was talking. Now, next is the statement from Department of Homeland Security. No known information regarding threats against the homeland. DHS will look into the TTPs used in the attack and will continue to monitor information regarding groups claiming responsibility. What's a TTP, you ask? Well, let's find out. Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures, TTPs, is an essential concept in terrorism and cyber security studies. So basically, what techniques, what tactics and what procedures were used in the attack. That's what the Department of Homeland Security is working on. Terrorist tactics, techniques, and procedures. The role of TTPs in terrorism analysis is to identify individual patterns of behavior of a particular terrorist activity or a particular terrorist organization, and to examine and categorize more general tactics and weapons used by a particular terrorist activity or a particular terrorist organization. Interesting. Okay. So again, Department of Homeland Security will look into the TTPs used in the attack. The terrorists' tactics, techniques, and procedures. That's what DHS is doing. While there are no indication of links to foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations, are increasingly interested in attacking public events. Wow. Wow, 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 was all I could say. Wow. Now, another thing that I found, because again, the redundancy and this got disseminated to a few people in that office, I keep going through this batch of records, I find this same correspondence again. However, it's redacted differently. So I'm going to take you there and we're going to look at the differences in how it's redacted. Okay, so here we are. Now we're at page 95 of this huge batch of documents. So again, talks about, for your situational awareness, the whole Antifa Australia thing. Okay, so now here is the same notes from the 1 p.m. DHS FBI Critical Incident National Conference Call. Now, what did they redact? They redacted Paddock wired over $100,000 to the Philippines in September. It is not known who received the money. Then the next sentence, the next bullet point, which was completely redacted in the first time I found it, it does start with IN, so I don't know that. Still, we don't know what that says. Then in the first correspondence we looked at, then the next bullet point would be the 22 weapons and tannerite that were recovered and located in the room. That's like half-ass whited out, but not blacked out. So that next bullet point was about the weapons, which is like kind of half there. Then, and then they do black out the rest of it where it says tannerite was also located in Paddock's vehicle and residence. Then they black out investigators are looking into electronic media that was recovered from the residence, which was new. That was not blacked out in the first correspondence that we saw. And then part of the whole... Oh, wait. Now they're talking about... Oh, I just noticed that. So, after... Recovered from the residence. Okay, that's where they blacked out the electronic media. Then the next bullet point was blacked out. And then, in the original one that I looked at, right after that one blacked out bullet point, then it says ISIS has claimed responsibility. Okay. Oh, that's right. That's the same thing. So, then they kind of whited out that just to really black out whatever was above it, the two above it, I think. So, I found that I found that interesting. Well, this is more official with this guy's seal on it, blah, blah, blah. They didn't black out anything from the DHS. They also this California office did figure out somehow, and I don't know if I can find that, but that Antifa Melbourne claim was total bullshit. That it was sent from, basically it was some white supremacist group trying to make Antifa look bad by having them claim that attack. And the way they stated it, it sounded pretty legit, whatever they did to figure that out. So if I do find that, maybe in another video, I will share that with you. But again, this over 1,800 pages of stuff to wade through was like, holy shit. And there was so much duplication that you're like, did I see this before or didn't I? Or am I skimming over things I shouldn't be? So, it took me a few days to go through it, and I think I did a pretty good job of weeding out. There is tons of stuff in here. I mean, just tons and tons and tons of stuff that isn't necessarily relating to the Las Vegas shooting, but yet to see the events that were going on prior to and a little bit afterwards, it paints kind of a different picture. I mean, it's pretty interesting. So when I saw the statement from DHS, it reminded me of their statement that they put out on October 2nd regarding the Las Vegas shooting. And I had printed that statement out on March 3rd, 2018. Because I always thought that it was worded like, why did they word that like that, and why did they tag it with these keywords and topics that they did? So we are going to go and take a look at that. DHS statement on the Las Vegas shooting. And at the time, there was the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Elaine Duke. Acting Homeland Security Elaine Duke has been briefed on the horrific shooting in Las Vegas last night. The department is closely monitoring the situation and working with our federal, state, and local partners in responding to and investigating this tragedy. Now, this is the part that always made me wonder. At this time, we have no information to indicate a specific credible threat involving other public venues in the country. However, increased security in and around public places and events may be experienced as officials take additional precautions. Our thoughts and prayers are with all those affected by this incident as we work to support the Las Vegas community. Topics: preventing terrorism. Keywords: Acting Secretary Elaine Duke, active shooter, terrorism prevention. I was like, okay. I printed this out in March, and I hope the picture that I took that you can see, but they changed some of the hashtags, because when I printed it out on March 6th, what I printed out, the topic is countering violent extremism. Topics: countering violent extremism. Keywords: Acting Secretary Duke, active shooter, and terrorism prevention. So they changed the topic from countering violent extremism to preventing terrorism. What that means, I'm not sure, but to me it means something. Because I always thought, okay, why are they hashtagging this or tagging this topic, countering violent extremism? What do they know that they're not telling us? Basically, is how I've always felt. So I'm going to try to pull up the picture I took of what I printed out because I should have taken this to work and scanned it in. I didn't even think about that today, but hopefully we can see it from the picture I took yesterday. Here's the picture I took of what I printed out on March 3rd, 2018. So it's the same statement from DHS on the shooting that we were looking at. However, what I noticed was the difference in the topic. And here, see where I printed it out, 3/6/2018, topics, countering violent extremism. Keywords, terrorism prevention. Now they have the topic as preventing terrorism, keyword, acting Secretary Duke, Elaine Duke, blah, 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 terrorism prevention. Why would they change that topic? Or why did they choose to tag it with that topic to begin with? Because they knew what they were dealing with. They knew what they were dealing with. That's my opinion. My opinion, they knew that this was an act of terrorism. And there was some extremism within that, obviously. So, take it for what it's worth, but it's right there. I mean, obviously I printed that out on March 6th. I don't know when they changed that topic, but they did. They changed it. I just thought it was good to know. Now, let's get back to the thing that I found the most fascinating. These financial suspicious activity reports, with all revolved around casino activity. Obviously, I know somewhat what that is and what that means, and I've had banking experience in the past, so I'm familiar. Not with a revolving around any casino activity or anything like that. So, I found this, and it's the American Gaming Association Best Practices for AML, Anti-Money Laundering Compliance, December 2014. And it's just a guide for casinos, basically, and online betting. I mean, there's a bunch of ways that people try to launder money through casinos and online video poker and things like that. So, we're just going to talk about that quickly. Potential suspicious activity. The Bank Security Act requires casinos to file SARs if the casino knows, suspects, or has reason to suspect that a transaction or attempted transaction aggregating at least $5,000 involves funds derived from illegal activity, intended to disguise funds or assets derived from illegal activity, is designed to avoid BSA reporting or record keeping, involves the use of the casino to facilitate criminal activity, has no business or apparent lawful purpose, is not the sort in which the particular patron would normally be expected to engage, and the casino knows of no reasonable explanation for the transaction after examining the available facts. So, to ensure that they are in line with the reporting requirements, they're going to file an SAR. So, if there was minimal gaming despite large financial transactions within the casino, structuring of transactions to stay at or slightly below the 10,000 reporting threshold for the CTRs, which that structuring is the major reason why SARs are filed. Whether it's casinos, banks, whoever, it's the structuring. It comes from, they make 2 deposits for a total of $6,000, and then next week they make a $4,000 deposit, something like that, you know, structuring where it's just under that 10 grand, you know, it's maybe 3 transactions that total 10 grand over a week's period of time, something like that. Placing currency in a slot machine, then cashing out after minimal or no play, and then redeeming the Tito ticket, token in, token out, I believe is what that stands for, on the gaming floor. Talks about racing venues, presenting a third-party check or wire transfer, whether apparently deriving from a business or an individual for payment of personal markers or for use in gambling-related activity in an amount at or above a threshold determined by the risk assessment for that casino. So the casinos have their insurers who have their risk managers who are going to say, you know, this is where you're going to be at. If it falls above that threshold, then you're going to have to file an SAR. If, you know, did that money come from a connected person to that person, a family member, a business, something like that? However, the casino can figure that out by the records, internet search, or any other reasonable inquiry. If they can't establish that reasonable connection, then that's suspicious. So then they have to decide whether they're going to file or not. A negotiable instrument or wire transfer is presented for the benefit of multiple patrons or multiple patrons engaged in play on a single patron account. A patron refuses to provide information. They want information about how to avoid the reporting requirements. Patron leaves the gaming floor with a large volume of chips without any offsetting chip redemptions or chip buy-ins at another table. The transaction may not be deemed suspicious if there is a reasonable expectation that that person will return in the near future. That's called a chip walk. Patrons pass a large quantity of chips, cash, or Tito tickets between themselves in an apparent effort to conceal the ownership of the chips, cash, or Tito tickets. If patrons are closely related, such activity may not be suspicious. If they present any funds from a foreign jurisdiction, especially anything that's declared by the government to be of concern for narcotics trafficking, human trafficking, money laundering, terrorism, or other illicit activity, or if that jurisdiction, that foreign jurisdiction, has been identified as non-cooperative by the Financial Action Task Force or Transparency International as a country with a high degree of public corruption. So, again, I guess we're not going to go, I'm probably going too long on this, so I apologize. But this gives you a good idea of what's going to trigger those SARs. And I just find 200 to be astronomical, and wasn't he on somebody's radar? Would that not put you on somebody's radar? And those casinos should know him well enough to know who he's connected to and who he's not, and if things that he was doing were suspicious or not. However, there are a lot of times that there's big legislation right now, or congressional hearings, or I'll have to get to that, about these SARs in particular. Are places over-reporting just to cover their asses? And most of them are about structuring. Most of them, nothing ever comes from it. Are they being investigated properly? There's a whole bunch of things and discussions happening. I think it was back in, I want to say maybe May of this year, about this particular thing with these reporting requirements. And the FinCEN that has to send out these investigators to look at all this stuff. And is it really doing what it's meant to do? And in some cases, yes, it does. It does trigger somebody to investigate, and they do find that there's terrorism financing, etc., or money laundering, things like that. But again, there are so many, huge amount of these reports that nothing ever comes of it from it. So I don't know. I just thought that was a shit ton of these reports. And then Mary Lou, 18, she has 18 suspicious activity reports, financial, I'm assuming. It kind of just dovetailed in with what they said about his, so I'm just assuming that. So was she known as some big time gambler or what? Or was she just a courier for some of this money? And this is just my thoughts and my opinions based on my research and things that are out there. But to me, why did the DEA show up there that night on October 1st, October 2nd? The DEA, if he was doing something nefarious, illegal, I would, excuse me, tend to lean more towards the drug trafficking than gun running, because obviously those guns were registered in his name. And there were way too many. That whole thing just does not make any sense whatsoever to be a gun running operation. I mean, that's the dumbest gun running operation in the history of the world, if that's what it was. So I tend to lean with the drug trafficking. And was Mary Lou a courier for some of this money? And were they laundering money? Between the casinos, his real estate business. I mean, when you're talking about money laundering, the first couple things that they talk about, how people attempt to launder money is through casinos and through real estate and shell companies and things like that. So, I mean, we've got a picture of Paddock with those things, and so that's the logical leap to make on that one, I think. And this is just my opinion. I'm just some old lady in Michigan, okay? I've never investigated shit before in my life until now. However, this thing drives it. I'm compelled to keep researching and find some truth in all the bullshit that's been put out there. So, and it's there. We just have to find it. It's there. And I know it's there. It's there. And they have not made it easy for us, but we'll get through it. And then one other thing I want to mention to get back to what we were talking about. Well, just my feeling about how the DHS came in, how they are looking into the tactics, techniques, and, you know, why, if it was a lone gunman, and they knew that, I mean, they were putting that out there at like 12:49 a.m. October 2nd. They're telling other law enforcement agencies, they're telling Clark County Fire Department, you know, in his first press conference, basically. I can't remember the exact time that was. It was supposed to be at 12:30, 12:45, but it didn't end up happening then. I think it was closer maybe to 1:30 or 3. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But needless to say, you know, he was like, pretty sure we've got the only, you know, the lone sole aggressor actor, and he's dead currently, and, you know, he expired, and blah, blah, blah. So they were pushing that lone gunman bullshit narrative from about 2 hours in to the whole thing. So it seems a little ridiculous that DHS is, I mean, they were doing a whole lot more than what they're owning up to and what LVMPD and the FBI want us to believe. Because as far as they were concerned, they didn't even want us to know that DHS was there. Again, because I think that immediately evokes the thought of terrorism. I know it does for me. And that's the last thing that they wanted people to think that night and the next day and the next week and the next month and the next months and within the next year. No terrorist attack. Everybody's safe. Come to the Strip. Gamble. Keep coming here. You're all safe. We got this shit under control. The whole nine. So just calm the public. They needed to calm the public. That's all they wanted to do was calm the public that night. So they were saying any fucking thing they had to make people think that they were safe. This was a lone, crazy old geriatric, can't get a chubby lone gunman that did all this, which is complete and utter fanciful fairy tale. Maybe I should do a part 2. I probably should stop right here because I don't even know how long I've been going. Probably too long. So we're going to make this part 1 and I will do part 2 soon. I appreciate everybody watching, and I know that I don't have any like awesome music or great graphics or anything like that. I have nowhere near the voice of an angel. I know my voice sucks. I don't like it. You don't have to tell me in a comment because I already know my voice sucks. But it's the voice God gave me. It's what I have to live with. So we're all just going to have to deal with it. But I appreciate your time. Leave me your comments, subscribe, share. Let's keep on digging for the truth, guys. Take care.